What a story. I mean, even the head of Mike Allen's playbook yesterday said, according to his sources too, that she would lose between, more than 5.7
almost a given.
The White House is sending the message this morning that labor has just flushed $10 million down the toilet.
Pat Buchanan, that is the message. And for a workforce reeling, so many people out of work, big labor in retreat, all across America. Yeah, the White House is saying, you guys, congratulations, you just flushed $10 million down the toilet that we're not going to be able to use this fall.
Exactly. And look, Joe, it was the night of the mama grizzlies all over the country. And down there in Arkansas, that's a defeat for liberals. It's a defeat for the unions, a huge one. Quite frankly, and you mentioned Bill Clinton, where was Barack Obama last night? Who was he for? Where are the Obama Democrats? This is a tremendous, I think it's a tremendous victory for outsiders, and the GOP's got a fighting chance, I think, in California and Nevada.
I mean, even look at the way that things are being characterized in the media. I think they want to step up the exposure of their involvement in the Gulf oil spill.
Well, there's no doubt about it, and of course this is an ongoing frustration. Pat Buchanan, as everybody that watches this show knows, you ran the communication shop for Reagan, and also in the Nixon White House, you were there in the communication shop. The White House has not been able to get the message out that they've been engaged since day one, despite the fact that the White House will tell you that on April 22nd, the president called everybody together and said, this is job one.
Right.
That was before they knew the extent of the leak.
This is before they knew the extent of the link.
The problem is a little bit like, excuse me, Watergate in this sense. We can't stop it. We can't put an end to it. You know, if you can put an end to something like this, stop, in this case, the oil leak, then you can start dealing with the consequences of it. Something that bleeds on and on. And in the White House, they got to have a sense there's not a darn thing we can do to stop this thing right now.
Right.
We simply have to take it and take it and take it until something is done.
And Pat, just so your words will not be wrenched from their proper context, you're not comparing this to Watergate, but you're just saying the constant...
The communications
You're talking about the communications problem where you want to move on to China, you want to move on to Vietnam, you want to move on to the economy, you want to move on to everything, but the press wants to talk about one story. One story, one story. And it's the same thing with this story, that it's but I want to read this. This is from the White House. This is a statement by the press secretary in the president's Oval Office meeting to discuss the situation in the Gulf of Mexico.
This is 2 days before it was even confirmed to be leaking.
Yeah, this is 2 days before it was confirmed to be leaking. The United States Coast Guard informed the president that search and rescue efforts are ongoing. It's for unfortunately, the men who were tragically killed in this accident. The president made sure the entire federal government was offering all assistance needed to the rescue effort, as well as mitigating and responding to the environmental impact, that this response was being treated as the #1 priority. The president asked the responding departments to devote every resource needed to respond to this incident and investigate the causes. This was April 22nd. And Pat, I ask you this, I'm not saying this like as a mitigating factor for the White House. It confirms what we've said on this show from day one, which is from the beginning, the president substantively has been doing everything that you would want your president to do. Substantively. And I can't talk, it's too early this morning. And yet there has been such a massive communication disconnect. Do you think they're turning the corner here? Do you think they're starting to get the message out of what they were talking about before anybody knew what was going on down there?
I think they are, Joe, but I'll tell you this, it may be too late. There's certain impressions that harden, and this one has hardened, that these guys were behind the curve. They didn't get out there. They didn't get the resources down there. And I don't know how you turn that around. Pat. I know, but I don't look. There are a lot of things that aren't true, but the impression's hardened, and I think the impression is hardened.
But Pat, you agree really quickly before we go to Andrea. You agree they have, as far as substance goes, look, they've been on the ground doing everything they can do.
I think you're exactly right on that, and it's not his fault that this thing blew, and they're doing their best to stop it, but there's no doubt the impression out there is that they were behind the curve.
This is a marathon. This is going to be around for
and they have to manage expectations.
Contrast what Bobby Jindal has done down there with what Barack Obama has done. Now, Jindal's somebody who's, everybody down there, President Bobby and all this, he's been on top of it. He can't stop the leak either. Yeah. But he's down there doing everything he can, and the people see him as being out in front of this issue.
Again, that would be impressions, Pat.
I know it's impressions, but impressions, I mean, perceptions are reality.
Well, see, this is fascinating because there was an article in the New Orleans paper. And this is, again, I mean, Henry Kissinger proven correct politically again that in politics, perception's reality. Bobby Jindal's been given $40 million to spend on this disaster. New Orleans paper saying he's only spent a small fraction
As of last Thursday, he'd spent only about $3 million of a $25 million BP grant for spill-related expenses, and also 1,100 of the 6,000 National Guard members authorized for spill cleanup efforts have been called up. And people are criticizing Bobby Jindal, Mr. Life Jacket on the beach, for not doing his job.
Yeah,
but no one's hearing that because of the image of him with his life jacket on the beach.
Sometimes politics is theater, Nora. It just is.
Many Americans believe that the federal response to Hurricane Katrina actually was slightly better than the federal response to this disaster. What was your response to that?
My response was I was part of both of them. Okay, and they're not comparable for a lot of different reasons. There was not a lot of assets present at Katrina. There was not a forward federal presence for quite a while. We were involved with this thing from the start. I could give you an exhaustive list of what's like and what's not like between the two events. I really don't believe they're comparable.
Thad Allen pushing back.
Yes, and the White House is pushing back in a lot of different ways, and in many cases, I think they have a point. They have been there from day one. The question is, have we been covering it intensely?
Yeah, and we've been saying what Thad Allen said yesterday. Repeatedly. Yeah. Here on this.
We have. No, I know.
Repeatedly.
I feel like they're pushing back from a narrative that, at least as far as I've heard on our show, I haven't seen.
They privately acknowledge that they made mistakes in relying too heavily on BP and in not reacting in a public way immediately. They did things organizationally. They didn't do it publicly. I think that it's a little bit too cute, particularly in the interview that he had with Matt Lauer, to talk about the cable culture. It isn't the cable culture.
That's all he does.
It's the people who live
in what he leans
the region
on.
Who are talking about wanting more responsiveness. And today, Thad Allen is calling in the BP executives. He wants to see what kind of claims payments they're making.
Andrea, let me ask, how could a guy that had the goodwill of many people in the press on his side be so thin-skinned when it comes to the media? He is constantly obsessing over talk radio hosts, over Jim Cramer and Mad Money, over Fox News, over Glenn Beck's series. It's called Mad Money, for God's sake. But they've been doing this. They've been doing. No, it has been constant since day one. Remember, even before he came in, they did the push poll. What Republican figures disliked? It's Rush Limbaugh. So they came right out of the gate, attacking Rush Limbaugh. And then it moved to Jim Cramer. And then it moved to Glenn Beck. And then it moved to Fox News. It's constant.
They thought that they successfully did go around, quote, mainstream media. They had their own operations. When recent coverage has involved them putting out their own videos where there's nobody traveling with the vice president or no one traveling with Secretary Clinton, they're posting videos. They're using the internet. They never thought that they needed the conventional media and the White House.
This event is different.
Can we go to, really quickly, Pat Buchanan, who said back in January and February of 2009, when they started attacking all of these people, you kept saying, don't shoot down, don't shoot down. But they constantly do. And the president's talking to Matt Lauer on BP, and he goes back once again to that recurring theme. It's the media's fault. Oh, it's the 24/7 cable culture. He always does that. How does that help him?
He sounds like a whiner. And that's what he's doing. And you go after Rush Limbaugh, he loves it. He goes on the air, the president attacked me again. How does that help the president of the United States to come down? Come down to the ratings of everything.
What's he going to do, just take it? I mean, he does have to respond.
You can call him a whiner, Pat, but it's a lot better than a liar or somebody who constantly relies on theatrics. I think of a pivotal moment in the president's presidency during a bad event, and I would call it mission accomplished.
But look, look,
when it
Rush
wasn't.
Limbaugh has
Wait, hold on. I got to stop. Stop this.
What?
You've got to figure out what we're actually talking about.
We're talking about
No. You're missing the point. Let me get the point out here, okay?
Okay, go for it.
It's about Pat Buchanan saying for a year and a half that this president is shooting down. Ignore Rush Limbaugh. You only help him when you bring him up. Ignore Glenn Beck. Ignore Fox News. Ignore Jim Cramer. Ignore these people who for years have been ignored by presidents. And I'm saying it's a distraction. It's clutter. It's noise. Ignore it. That's what we're saying here.
And then we get very annoyed and everyone criticizes him when we ignore it, when he ignores it. And he doesn't feel it enough and this and that. My God.
No.
I mean, what are they doing versus what are they not doing?